Hello again. Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, joined by my friend Stuart Lackey as we talk Kentucky most weeks. I say most weeks. We've taken a couple off weeks lately with travel and technical difficulties and all that fun stuff that comes with it. But man, we got a lot to talk about today. Maybe more than you and I have ever had to talk about in one of these shows before, sir.
Oh man, so excited to connect. And yeah, I can't remember, Chris, a 6 day period where more happened. In University of Kentucky sports. At least in recent memory. So yeah, a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, I got to lead in with you there, but first there was
All right.
just a reminder that we are sponsored by Bet Online. The last of the major pro sports leagues is off and rolling. College basketball ready to go as well. Actually, it's here. BetOnline remains your top spot for all your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL, all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. All the hoops betting action along with every sport available at your fingertips, both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Stuart. Has there been a crazier day in the history of Kentucky football than Saturday? And I mean from sun up to sundown and beyond.
Well, yeah, and it all started, the week before. I think after the South Carolina loss in Columbia, Chris, I think most of the Kentucky fan base had just kind of given up on the team in the year, and nobody, I feel pretty confident. Very few people had Kentucky, to start it off being competitive and then winning the game on the road against the in-state rival, a top 10 Louisville team. Completely unthinkable. And the Cats just showed up and showed out and played maybe their best game, most complimentary game of the year against a surging Louisville team. So yeah, it started off, in wild fashion and then accelerated from there.
Were the marks, and I say craziest day because there's a part 2 and 3 to this. There's a portion of the afternoon and evening where it looks like Mark Stoops is about to head to Texas A&M until he's not for whatever
Right.
reason. So when did all the rumblings of, and I was actually on an airplane when all this was
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
When did all the rumblings that, hey, the program might end with a different coach or a coaching vacancy at the end of Saturday night? When did all that start to leak out?
I think the rumblings actually started late Friday, but Saturday morning before kickoff was
Wow.
when a lot of the news sources really started to circulate the story, and there were rumblings. And again, you hear that around kickoff, and you're thinking, okay, how's that going to impact
Yeah.
the play today? Because all that stuff's going to get out. The locker room knows, and so how on earth can the coaching staff keep everybody together? And they just did, and so I would say that in earnest, the rumors started to really move Saturday morning, and then certainly right after the game concluded. But yeah, definitely a whirlwind of Saturday. The deal was tracking to get done, and we can talk about how things kind of unfolded in kind of late afternoon, evening hours when most people went to sleep, Chris, Saturday night thinking Mark Stoops was gone to College Station. And I think what happened between early evening on Saturday and then the early hours of Sunday morning really, caused Stoops to kind of rethink, and maybe Texas A&M as well.
Yeah, I would love to know how that actually went down because in coaching
Yeah.
searches, very few truths are told publicly.
Well,
And by very few, I mean almost none.
yeah. So exactly. So here's what we know, and here's what I think is safe to say. There could be variation depending on which camp you talk to, but the deal was tracking to get done. I think Stoops had shown obviously significant interest in the job. The athletic director for A&M had gone to, I think, the Board of Regents and said, okay, look, I'm going to express interest in barring anything earth shaking. He was going to go to Texas A&M. When, of course, Jimmy Sexton represents Mark Stoops. I think while that deal was kind of being socialized between camps, Stoops started doing some checking on his own, saying, to his assistants, if I go do this, who's with me? And I think the response to that, Chris, wasn't exactly what he thought he would hear. And so that caused Stoops to maybe rethink, accepting the job. And then I think during that same period of time, from Saturday night to early hours of Sunday, I think A&M may have gotten feedback from some of their top boosters, members of the fan base, that maybe that wasn't the person that they wanted to go with. So I think the feeling to pull back from the deal was from both sides, but who knows what, the real truth is. I will say this. I think that Louisville win did more to keep Mark Stoops in Lexington than we even realize.
Yeah, because I was reading where Cats Illustrated the message board a little bit, and I think there was some sentiment, and you would know better than I would, that's the biggest win he's had in Lexington.
You know what? With everything that was riding on it, and look, hey, should one game have such a high impact on so many things and a decision like, a coach leaving to go take another job? I mean, yeah, when it's your in-state rival, when they're ranked top 10 and you've had the season you've had, I mean, it saved the season. It saved the fan base. It probably saved a lot of recruiting battles that Kentucky's in on. It saved NIL, support and fan support, season tickets. I mean, it had a massive impact and a momentum shift. And, you and I talk about it all the time. It's like week to week in college football, should one game make such a big difference? And it's like, yeah, they're all important because you only play 12 of them, right? And so, one or two ball games can absolutely have a ripple effect, of something like this, in scale. And so, yeah, it had a lasting impact. And I don't, other than maybe the first Florida win in the Swamp in 2018 on that 10-3 team, this is probably right there with that one. I would put those two at the top for sure.
Yeah, it just was crazy to follow that day. To the field, what takeaways did you have from the game itself?
Like I said, a complimentary game. I think Devin Leary played well enough, to win. He had one late mistake, trying to make a play, throw a ball out of bounds, and it got picked, which put the win in jeopardy. The defense, just absolutely balled out. 2 forced fumbles. JJ Weaver, who many thought was going to be potentially an all SEC type of, player this year, kid from Louisville, had 2 fumble recoveries, 1 forced fumble, and a key sack late in the game to put, to help Kentucky cap the win. And, all 3 phases played very well for the first time since the early non-conference schedule. And so again, I mean, it's a top 10 win, Chris. I don't know if Louisville is really a top 10 program. Would they be if they played in the SEC? That's maybe another debate, but man, it didn't matter. The team got it done and, saved what, really was kind of what many thought would be a lost season. So hats off to them.
And also some basketball has been played.
Yeah. I think we've got a team here. Just wow. What a start to the men's basketball season. I think everyone felt like Calipari, certainly with the #1 recruiting class in typical fashion would have a talented team, but I don't think they expected the contribution from, specific players that he's had so far this early season. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't look. They're fun to watch. They score a lot of points. That Miami score was astonishing to beat a team like that by that many points this early in the season.
Massive. And, to do it, Miami, obviously a Final Four team from a year ago. Kentucky came into the game as a 6.5, 7-point favorite. And I had a lot of people scratching their heads. So maybe the odds makers knew something that the rest of us didn't. But I mean, look, here's the reality. This is one of the best shooting teams, not just in the Calipari era through 6 or 7 games in Kentucky, in Kentucky history. I mean, these guys are setting a pace that we haven't seen in Lexington in quite a while. I'm talking about going back to the early Pitino eras of the late era of the late 80s, early 90s. You've got 5 kids off this team averaging double figures. Last night, you almost had 6. And if DJ Wagner hadn't gotten injured, you might have had 7 Cats last night put up double figures. I mean, that was completely plausible. And, I think everyone felt like, that Wagner and Edwards and Bradshaw, when he comes back, we can talk about that in a minute, we're going to be some of the bright spots. Man, the Dillingham kid and Reed Sheppard, honestly have been huge surprises. And
Yeah.
I think have made this team now not just, a national story, but legitimate Final Four contenders.
Well, I was going to ask you, is Reed Sheppard the MVP at this point? And let me give you justification, okay?
I'd be sure. Yeah.
Okay, he's fifth on the team in scoring, 12.3 points, but he's doing that in 24.7 minutes. So he's scoring per 40 minutes, he's averaging about 20 points a game. Rebounding 3.9. Not great, but also not his job. Assists 3.6, that's third on the team. Trey Mitchell is right ahead of him. Mitchell plays a lot more minutes. Steals leads him 3.1 a game. You adjust that to 40 minutes. It's around 5 per 40 minutes. That's phenomenal. He's blocking a shot a game, which he's their second leading shot blocker. My goodness. And he's only turning it over 1.3 times a game. So assist to turnover ratio more than 2-1, leading him in field goal percentage 65.2, free throw percentage hasn't missed one yet, and 3-point percentage 63.
I mean, everything you just said is transferring over to team statistics nationally.
Yeah.
Right. He's got the highest plus minus of any player in the country.
Ooh.
Any player in the country. And he showed it out through a stat line last night. You talked about, just the percentage of shooting. He's shooting 64% from the 3-point line. And it's not like he's taken 5 shots. I mean, he's taken, he's qualifying, in terms of number of shots to be qualified for national statistics in that category. But the turnover margin. I mean, again, the team is averaging 8 turnovers a game and 21 assists a game for the season. And I mean, again, Kentucky hasn't seen this type of efficiency in a long time. You've seen it maybe here and there from individual players, but the team is shooting 60% from the field and 44% from 3. Averaging 26 assists, and when we say 7 turnovers, that's remarkable. And Chris, here's the reality of this whole thing. Calipari has always recruited well, but most of his kids have been really super athletes who had basketball skill. These kids all are great basketball players who also happen to be really good athletes.
Yeah.
And they all can dribble, they all can pass, and they all can shoot, which puts a lot of pressure on opposing teams.
Well, and the thing is, in that state, kids grow up dreaming of playing for Kentucky, and for the most part, they don't get the chance.
Right.
The one and done era has been a little different. I mean, you have to go back to, I guess, Pitino's first teams to where that dynamic was really in play. You have followed Kentucky more than I do. I've watched them a ton, but that's the last one I remember. And the number of guys that grew up in that state dreaming of wearing that jersey who actually got the opportunity to do that as more than a walk-on have been very few. And I think that's one of the cool parts about the story, and certainly a part that endears him to the fan base.
No question. Both of his parents, were all conference, all American performers. In the case of his father, Jeff Sheppard, in the mid to late 90s. And you can see the basketball IQ. And when he's on the floor, Chris, everybody just plays better. There's an efficiency and just an attention to detail on both ends of the floor that, again, Calipari just hasn't had that, across such a broad, group of kids. And he elevates the play. He's got great instincts on defense, his timing to block shots, to force steals. I mean, it's just, in his shot making ability. I don't think anybody thought that this kid was going to be, this productive this soon. I think everyone thought, hey, we got a great in-state talent. He's maybe not as athletic as the other 3 or 4 kids that came in with him this year. He's going to be at Kentucky for 2 to 3 years. Now there's talk that he might be a lottery pick next year if this continues. And again, does he have the height to play in the NBA? I mean, all those things, the measurables can be determined at a later time. But fact is, I mean, he is the leading reason why this team is functioning at such an efficient level. And, again, going back to Calipari's style of play, he has changed the way that he plays on the offensive end, partially because his bigs are not healthy yet. So he's playing 4 out and 1 inside. And the problem is that the 4 outside perimeter players all can shoot at a high clip. So it's like pick your poison. And by the way, the kid that's playing the 4 can step out and shoot as well. And so this is a unique situation that Calipari has found himself in. And credit to him, he's playing to the strengths of his team right now. And that's why they've been successful.
Do you think the approach changes when their bigs get healthier? And when does that day come finally?
Well, Bradshaw's practicing with the team. He's probably going to play. They've got UNC Wilmington on Saturday. There's talk that he'll play minutes in that game, but that's really the question. And so what happens when these kids come back? Does it mess up the chemistry? Yeah. And so, I think they're going to have to play through, this system of how they've been successful. The good news is that Bradshaw can shoot from the perimeter, right? So it's not like he's going to be locked in down low and being forced. It's just really where I think it's going to have the greatest impact is on the defensive end, because right now Kentucky's trying to run people off the 3-point line and then just hoping, people can recover and kind of collapse and force people to make, to force them to take tough twos or have some trouble, finishing at the rim. And so far it's helped, but we've seen, especially against Kansas, against a big, Kentucky struggled, right? And so they really need some help on the inside from that standpoint.
6 guys averaging double figure scoring, and Thiero there at 8.2. Like, I don't know if any team in the country has got 6 double-digit scores. I mean, that's going to make them such a nightmare to defend.
You can't. I mean, it's like even so if you have Sheppard on one wing and you have Reeves on the other. I mean, Reeves is a 50-50 shooter from the 3. Sheppard's over that right now. But, Dillingham is also shooting at a high clip. And I'll say this, we talk about playing, with house money or being fearless. These kids are absolutely fearless, and they're having fun, and they've played good competition. They've played number 1 Kansas. They were up 14, and had they played Kansas maybe a week or 2 later, they may have found a way to close that one out and actually win that ball game. But I mean, they're absolutely going to be a tough matchup for most of the teams they play in the SEC, and especially if they get a couple of these big guys back. I can't imagine, I can't imagine them going into any team that's left on the schedule and not being, if not a favorite, being, expected to win the game just because of the level of confidence, on the offensive end. You're going to have to outscore Kentucky, Chris, this year. And in most years under Calipari, it was the other way around. Cal had to figure out how he was going to score 80, 85 points, to beat a really good offensive team. And now it's the other way around.
The game I'm circling, and I'm trying to. I want to say it is February the 6th.
Gonzaga.
It's the day they play Alabama.
Oh, Alabama. Okay.
Because Alabama's putting points up too. Now, I'm not sure Alabama can get stops like Kentucky does, but if you like your points, that's the one you want to see.
Yeah. Again, Tennessee's good. I mean, Alabama, circle that date on the calendar. And I haven't watched enough of the rest of the conference yet to really get a good feel on some of those teams. But yeah, I like this team's chances now just because they've demonstrated consistently that they can, it's not just taking threes. It's working the ball around. I mean, if you've watched this team, how quickly they pass in and out of the post, how they get into the lane and just find the open man. And it doesn't look forced at all. It looks like they've been playing together for years. And again, I can't remember a Calipari team that has passed and shared the ball this well. This early in the season, especially.
Yeah.
If you can think of one, let me know. I mean, you can always point to that 2014-15 team that finished 38-1, but I mean, they had so much talent. A lot of talent just covered up, any kind of inefficiency from a team standpoint, right?
By the way, it was February the 24th, and that one is in Lexington. So I think they're going to
Yeah.
be fun to watch. But I mean, before the season, I was doing my how do I size these teams up? And I think I had A&M 1, Tennessee 2, and I think I had Kentucky 4 or 5, just because
Yeah.
like I just need to see. Once I see, I think I can probably make up my mind. But I
Yeah.
didn't expect to make it up that quickly. Because I mean, the Kansas game to me still stands out as one that really impressed me, because it just felt like when they were on their game, I'm not going to say Kansas didn't belong on the floor with them, but it felt like they were the better team. Then the youth kicked in, and the dumb
Yeah.
turnovers and some stuff like that.
Bad shots.
I'm
Yeah.
going to guess, yeah. But I mean, I'm sitting here going, okay, what, they're 12 in the polls, I think 13 in Ken Palm, and Ken Palm at this point's got a lot of preseason expectation baked in based on what players did in the past. Well, most of their players in the past were in high school. And I just think once that gets baked out, I don't know where the national landscape settles, but I mean, they got to be in the top 5 somewhere. And I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Tennessee wins the league, maybe A&M wins the league, but I just think if all the parts come together, I don't think anybody's got parts as good as theirs.
I would agree with you. And again, obviously rooting for the home team, so to speak, but again, I look forward to watching some of these matchups and the rest of the SEC, ACC challenge in Tennessee and seeing what they do. But yeah, this has the makings of being a very special team. And again, you just see it. I mean, yeah, they scored 118 points, last week. And, that against St. Joe's. And again, St. Joe's is a senior laden team, good shooting team, has a great chance to win that league. And, that's the most points that's been put up in Calipari's tenure in Kentucky. And you see those kind of little signals. You're like, okay, maybe that was just a flash in the pan, but then they do what they did last night against Miami. And you're like, okay, yeah, is Miami a top 10 team? I think Ken Palm yesterday had Miami like maybe in top 30 team. So maybe we
The
saw
computers
exactly.
don't like them nearly as much as the pollsters do.
Yeah. And so, what's real right now, I can tell you this, they're not going to come up against a better shooting team on their schedule based on what's in front of them and, the regular season. And so they're only going to get better. They'll, and again, we go back to the bigs getting reinserted into this lineup. How's that going to disrupt, the flow of this team? They'll figure it out. But I just love their confidence and the way they're playing. Here's some other national statistics real quick, and this is from Kyle Tucker. Kentucky ranks number 1 nationally in turnover percentage, meaning the lowest. Number 3 in offensive efficiency. Number 4 in three-point percentage. This is what's really interesting too. Of the 661 points that the Cats have scored thus far, 621 of those points have been either on three-point shots in the paint or free throws. Which means the mid-range game, which has plagued
really has
a lot of Cal games, completely gone away. And that's, you talk about forcing tough twos. I mean, Kentucky's really, they're picking their spots, and just again goes back to that efficiency, statistic line. So they're passing the eye test, and I think that's what the shooting is what Kentucky fans have not seen at this level in a long, long time. And man, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Well, hopefully this time next week we'll be able to do this again as schedules calm down and audio troubles get resolved and all those things that plague us.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Kentucky will know its bowl destination this time next week. It will have played games against, let's see, UNC Wilmington and at Penn. Is that right? At Penn?
I think that's in Philadelphia, actually.
Okay, in the Palestra.
Yeah.
Okay, which will be fun.
Yeah. That's an interesting. And again, that'll be an interesting game. That'll be another good test for the Cats. You mentioned the bowl destination. I think most people feel that Kentucky is going to end up in Charlotte at the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and a lot of people have them playing, ironically, the Duke Blue Devils. So, historic basketball rivalry, goes over to the gridiron. So I think from that standpoint, that would hold a lot of interest for UK fans from a novelty standpoint, even though Duke, ended up finishing, what was a tough season on their side. But hey, there's some intrigue to that matchup. So I think the other thing we'll have to look at is the transfer portal, right? That goes live next Monday, but the rumors, Chris, are already circulating across the conference and the country. And Kentucky did get some good news this week so far. Two of their starting offensive linemen, Eli Cox and Marcus Cox, both returning for another year, which is great, as things emerge. And then something else to keep an eye out on, the starting center for Notre Dame also entered the transfer portal. His family has a lot of legacy ties. Both his father and I believe his grandfather and his father both played football at Kentucky. So look out for him. Potentially, a guy named Zeke, the kid's named Zeke Carell, ending up potentially at Kentucky as their starting center next year, which would be a huge get. So,
Kentucky hit the portal hard a year ago for sure.
Hey, and then we also have the probably the biggest unknown right now is the quarterback position. Yeah. So a lot of quarterbacks entering the portal, and it'll be interesting to see what Liam Cohen, who Liam Cohen goes after to take the reins for next season. So
KJ Jefferson from Arkansas hit the portal today. Didn't see that one coming.
I saw that, and I think the early interest is the kid from Kansas State, Will Howard.
Yeah, who's been there a while, I think, right?
He's been there for a while. Dual threat quarterback, good size, not a high powered arm, but good enough. And I think one of the things that that the coaching staff circled up pretty quickly as the season was winding down on, it's like, okay, we can't miss on the quarterback for next year. And so, I think Stoops is giving Liam Cohen the ability. He chose Leary, albeit it was a small pool, in the transfer portal last year. He's going to give him that freedom. Howard looks to be an early favorite, but there's some others that are out there, I think, that the Cats are talking to as well. So that'll be exciting to see how that unfolds.
A lot to talk about when we do this again next week. Stuart, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you again then.
Chris, thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
All right. He is Stuart Lackey. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thank you for watching. Thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this, and we'll see you again soon.